Okay, you beautiful friends, welcome back to the back of the semi-truck, and it's that time of the year where the audio is in the process of changing over to where I have the truck running when I'm recording, because when I stop the truck at night lately, it has been too hot to record with the truck turned off. So, we are back to the cheapo mic here, and then just editing out all the background noise and all that good stuff. So, if there's a dip in quality of audio, I apologize, but if there's a rise in quality, I take the credit for that. So, nonetheless, though, we are here because I found me a video that was entitled Starlight Was Never a Villain. And I like Starlight. Starlight is one of my favorite ponies. So when I see that and I seen the thumbnail, it kind of stood out to me. Now, this is a creator that I'm not familiar with whatsoever. They go by the name of MLP Dymos. And I think the tagline for them on their channel is All Things Pony. So I don't know what to expect from this channel. I don't know, what kind of videos they do or anything like that. I do know this is a 23-minute video. So I'm about to be sitting here for quite a while, but I do have to call the wife here in about an hour and 20 minutes. So we do have a bit of a time limit on this. Hopefully I can abide by my time limit and then call the wife and have our good night stuff that we always do. We fall asleep on the phone still together. After 10 years of me driving a semi-truck, we still fall asleep on the phone together. That way we are still sleeping together nonetheless. Either way, though, Starlight was never a villain. Stands out to me. Good thumbnail. Everything's going good with the video, so I'm presuming that this is going to give me a new perspective on Starlight, possibly, because I do see Starlight as a bit of a villain when it comes to not necessarily a not necessarily a villain, but misguided. Very much misguided, because let's be real, she kind of turned her community into a communist place. So let's see what this person has to say. And I don't want to mince any more words, so we're just going to play this in 3, 2, 1, and play.
As if it wasn't obvious at this point, I think we all know who my number one is. I'm talking about Starlight.
Okay.
Starlight Glimmer is the best character in MLP, bar none. And that's whether you're talking about the good version or the quote-unquote evil version.
Pause. Okay. So I wanted to give him a second to kind of lay that beginning out. I don't quite know what the whole number one at the beginning stands for. Maybe this is his number one point, and then we're going to go on to the second point, third point, fourth point, stuff like that. I don't know. Not familiar with the channel, but I do have to say, since I did forget to say this in the beginning opening, because let's be real, people skip the opening anyway. So I'm glad I kind of accidentally skipped saying this so I can say it right here. If you want to go check this video specifically out without all my commentary, because I do stop a lot, go down to either the pinned comment down below in the comments, or go to the description and you will find either a link directly to their channel, or you will find a link directly to this video. Now, other than that, so far I'm with him. Starlight, I say one of my favorites, but if I'm being real, she's my favorite pony. So, yeah, probably because I relate to her the most. She kind of thinks about things logically with common sense, as opposed to thinking about things, from one perspective and one perspective only. She kind of like, why don't you just do this? It makes more sense. So, yeah, let's continue. Go check his channel out. and give him some support because I obviously don't want to take away from their video. So, with that said, let's continue and play.
But here's the thing, a lot of people seem to get this wrong. A lot of people call Starlight a villain, this version of Starlight. And that's not correct. A lot of people, I think, have villain mixed up with antagonist. And here's the thing, you can definitely say this version of Starlight is a villain, because it would depend on what you think evil is. Because villains tend to be evil. But let's look at definitions first before we get into the nitty gritty. Merriam-Webster defines villain as a character in a story or play who opposes the hero. Starlight definitely falls under that. A deliberate scoundrel or criminal, again, falls under that. Or one blamed for a particular evil or difficulty. She's 3 for 3 there. But let's look at a few other places. Dictionary.com defines villain as a cruelly malicious person who is involved in or devoted to wickedness or crime. That doesn't sound like Starlight.
Pause. Um, okay. So far, I'm with him, but I'm also not with him because if we use the first definition, yeah, she is a definition. You know, she is a textbook definition. If we're going by, I think he used Merriam-Webster's dictionary first. Okay. So if we're going by that definition, yeah, she's 3 for 3. She kind of, you know, she meets the criteria for the definition of a villain. But if we're going by, let's see, let me reread this real fast. A cruelty, malicious person who is involved in or devoted to wickedness or crime. I agree right now that she isn't devoted to that until she lost her community. But if we can't forget that she did try to kind of mess all the timeline up, and it kind of got a little screwy. So her malicious intent to destroy Twilight and the friendship that she holds dear is kind of villainous. So yeah, I want to go ahead and start reading the other two definitions that he has here, but I'm going to let him continue. Plus, at the same time, I kind of let him go on longer than what I normally do because I wanted to kind of read what he's kind of saying here. So I'm with him, but I'm not. I'm on the fence. Let's see if he can convince me. And play.
A character in a play, novel, or the like who constitutes an important evil agency in the plot. Again, I don't really see how she's evil. And finally, a person or thing considered to be the cause of something bad. That one's kind of subjective, but I still don't think that in Starlight's mind, what she did was bad, per se. Finally,
Pause before he moves on to another version of another dictionary version of the definition, if that came out of my mouth coherently, because that sounded in my head. Terrible way of saying what I was saying. But to add to what he's, well, not necessarily to add what he's saying, but to, I guess, subtract to what he's saying, because he's saying there that Starlight doesn't see what she's doing as evil. Just because somebody doesn't see what they're doing as evil doesn't mean what they're doing isn't evil. Because there's a lot of horrendous things that were done in the name of good, or at least in their eyes, the name of good, that was pretty freaking evil. Just saying. So, by going by the logic of she doesn't think it's evil, doesn't mean that it isn't. She did have a role to play when it came to forcing people away from their cutie marks and forcing them to be, quote, equals in everything and anything. She does have a part to play in that, and she might not see it as evil, but it's evil. So let's continue. Let's see what this third dictionary has to say and play.
Cambridge Dictionary defines villain as a bad person who harms other people or breaks the law. This may apply to Starlight. I mean, the laws are kind of sketchy here. We don't know Equestria's laws to a T, but we also know that most of her ponies went to her village to be part of her village. Also, a criminal. Again, we wouldn't know that. A character in a book, play, movie, etc., who harms other people. That one's very loose because harm. I've seen Rainbow Dash crash into other ponies. She obviously harms them, not on purpose, but on accident. So that one, again, is one that we can't really hold against her. But
No, I'm gonna pause first. I'm not. We're gonna see in a minute on the rest of that definition, but I'm not being mean or rude to the guy. But what he's saying doesn't hold no water right now, due to the simple fact that what she was doing was taking away from their free will. You know, just because they might have went to the village voluntarily doesn't mean that they voluntarily wanted their cutie mark taken away from them, and from their free will was seemingly taken from them, stripped from them. That was causing mental anguish, and that was intentional by Starlight. Just because she's my favorite pony doesn't mean that I can't see the negative that she was once. And when she made her communist village, she had a lot of negative. I'm sorry, but she did. When I'm stopping to think about it, she did pretty horrendous things, not even including whenever, her village was, freed with all the cutie marks. And then when she did what she did with, stalking the main six and lurking in the background, just waiting for her time to strike. So she did cause pain. Mental anguish is pain. So, and it might not have been intentional per se, but it was still, she still continued even after she started, and even seeing the ponies all around her, that you could tell that they were not happy. So let's continue. Let's see what else he has to say. And
let's see what antagonist means. Merriam-Webster defines antagonist as one that contends with or opposes another. That definitely fits Starlight. Adversary or an opponent. Again, those both fit Starlight. Those fit a lot of characters in MLP, but those fit Starlight pretty close. So let's see some other definitions of antagonist. Dictionary.com defines antagonist as a person who is opposed to, struggles against, or competes with another opponent, adversary. The really interesting part of this first definition is it gives antonyms. And two of the antonyms are friend and ally. An antonym is the opposite meaning of the word. So whereas Twilight has her friends and allies, Starlight is the opposite of that. Other definitions it gives are the adversary of the hero or protagonist of a drama or other literary work. Again, both of those fit way better than the villain definitions that we have so far. So let's look at one more. Once again, Cambridge defines antagonist as a person who is strongly opposed to something or someone. Pretty sure Starlight is strongly opposed to friendship. Now, of course, you can make arguments about everything, right? You could say,
pause before he starts telling us about the arguments that could be made, because I got a feeling he's probably going to touch on some of what I've already said. Let's go ahead, and I'm glad that he also gave us the definition to antagonist, but if we're being fair, antagonist and villain, they're pretty much synonymous with one another. They're one and the same, but yet different, because Trixie, she's not a villain, but she is an antagonist. She antagonizes the situations around her, not necessarily to the point where she's the villain, but a villain is an antagonist nonetheless. So Starlight still meets the definition of a former villain, Granted, yes, she can also be an antagonist at the same time as being that villain. So more than anything, antagonist, there's a lot of ponies that it does describe. Um, I would say it's described in Discord, but Discord was a villain in their first appearance, if not many more appearances after that. But after that, though, is when Discord became more of an antagonist as opposed to villain. A former villain, now antagonist, would be more along the lines of Discord. Now, Trixie, I think she is about the best definition of the antagonist. And I know that Trixie and Starlight, they got that friendship together, but Trixie wasn't really ever a villain, let's be real. So, yeah. Um, Other than that, let's see what kind of counter arguments that he's going to be describing here that I probably already touched on, but also need to kind of have a counter argument against. There we go. Let's continue because my words aren't wording. And
Okay, well, that makes Rainbow Dash an antagonist in certain episodes. That makes Pinkie Pie an antagonist. Yeah, correct. There's definitely a valley between Friendship is Magic's villains and their antagonists. We kind of just lump all of them together into one big, they're bad guys. But I don't think it's as simple as that, because it makes things a lot easier to do that, but it's a lot more concise and understandable when you separate the pool of perceived villains into antagonists and into literally just evil villains. Let's do a rundown of the villains, starting with Sombra.
balls. Okay, so before he jumps into the villains, let me go ahead and touch on some of what he just said. I know he's going to get to Discord in a minute, but I've seen that he already had Discord mixed with who he views as an antagonist. Yes, Discord is now an antagonist, but he was a villain. So you can go from being a villain to being an antagonist. So I'm sorry to say it, but he's wrong about Discord. Well, he might actually say what I'm saying. I'm not giving them enough leeway yet in order to actually convey what they're saying. So, yeah. So far though, I don't agree with him. I want to agree with him. I do want to. I want to agree that Starlight was never a villain, only an antagonist. But so far, it's a no-go for me. She did more stuff in the underline than just what was on the surface. So let's continue. I know we're going to sit here and talk about Sombra. We know that he's a villain, but let's let them go through it. And I don't know when I'm going to stop again. I'm probably going to let it play for at least 30 seconds. Sorry if I pause too much, but it's commentary, y'all. Y'all know the drill by now. And play.
He was literally only focused on subjugating an entire nation through forced means, right? With the head things and all of that crap. I think anybody would agree that is evil. Like, anybody. Forced physical labor, chains, enslavement, all of these things, evil. Okay, so Sombra is a villain. Chrysalis is a bit more complex. She starts out invading and obviously doing things that anybody would consider, like, evil, because she's just like, I am going to steal love and etc, etc. But she's doing it for the Hive, possibly? We don't really know. Early Chrysalis's, like, canon reasons for doing what she did. She could have been completely selfish and evil in doing her actions, or she could have been doing it for her Hive and to make it stronger. If it was for world conquest and destroying everything, obviously evil. If it was for her family and to take care of them and make them strong, not evil. But once Chrysalis lost her Hive and started being a literal psychopath and was just like, I want to basically subjugate everyone in the world, that's when it was obvious that she had evil motivations and she didn't care about anything but getting what she wanted. Tirek, again, subjugation, forced rule. Uh,
Pause. All right, so let me go ahead and touch a little bit on that chrysalis one that he's talking there. I don't know how much I can agree. I felt like he was wanting Chrysalis to be kind of borderline antagonist slash villain. Just because it's for the hive doesn't mean that it's for the best for them, which means hopefully, because from what I'm hearing is he feels like the ends justifies the means, and it doesn't make you a villain if you're doing it for the greater good of your people. I know I might be misstating that because I don't feel like that's what he's saying, but at the same time, it sounds like it might be. Um, yeah, I don't. Hmm. Yeah, Chrysalis. Yes, I'm sorry, she's a villain. She doesn't want, when you're sucking the love out of someone to survive. I get it that sucks to be your mechanism for, you know, your substance for life, but as we see with Thorax, there are other ways. She doesn't have to be that way in order to live. So she is only that way due to the fact that she is evil and she can't find love in that way. So, yeah, hopefully it makes sense in my head just then, but yeah, she's a villain. I agree with that. I'm glad he landed on that. Of course, yeah, Sombra was a villain. Tirek or Tarek, however you pronounce his name, because I never can get that correct. But yeah, he's obviously going to be a villain. Let's let him continue and play.
wants to force everyone to do what he wants, regardless of what their wishes are. He gets all the power. He is the strongest evil villain. And finally, we have Cozy Glow, just a bunch of deceit and trying to make a grab for power again so she could be the strongest, so she could literally subjugate everyone. Everyone below her. Doesn't matter what everybody else wants, it's only what she wants. Selfishness. Evil. It's evil again. It's her forcing what she wants on everyone else. Right?
Pause. I'm conflicted about Cozy Glow, honestly, because Cozy Glow is a child, let's be fair, and I don't feel like we really explored her motives other than cartoon logic. I'm evil, I want to rule. If friendship's so powerful, I want all the friendship so I can be the most powerful. We didn't really, dive into her character to find out what really makes her tick. And I think that's all, I guess she's just bad for bad's sake. But at the same time, she's a child. I'm sure she could learn another way, but she is a villain. Unfortunately, I do have to agree. So let's continue and play.
And there's one more. Moon is a bit more difficult. The reason that Moon is a bit more difficult is because we got glimpses of what stuff would be like with her in power, right? So in I think it's season 4 where they do the. It might be season 5. It's the one where Rarity is her butler or whatever, and we see that regardless of whatever her kingdom after banishing a Celestia, it is alive. We don't know how strong it is. We don't know how she treats her subjects very well. We just see that she is ruling. Is she a villain? I would say probably, because again, it's not what her subjects want, it's what she wants, and she will force that on everyone, and everyone will love her.
Pause again. Okay, so that's the second time he said that they're going to force, the subjects to love them and their way, this and that. Starlight kind of did that. I'm sorry, but she forced the fact that, hey, you're going to be on this village? Give me your cutie mark. It's mine now. I'm the one who has it. We're all going to be equal. Let's plaster this little equal sign on you. And she forced them to subjugate to her will, her desire, her wants of all people equal. So, yeah. As far as Nightmare Moon, as much as I want to say that she wasn't a villain, she was. She let the nightmare, side take over and became a villain. I don't want to say it, but it is true because I understand why she became the way she was. She felt like she was getting overshadowed by her sister. She kept, she wanted people to kind of look at her and be like, "Hey, why don't y'all enjoy the nighttime? This is my domain. Y'all don't enjoy the nighttime. Y'all don't party. Well, actually, they do party during the nighttime. Y'all don't go to the park during the nighttime. Y'all don't do this during the night. Y'all just sleep." It's like, I get it. She wants a little bit more. She's, in fact, I feel like she's just lonely at nighttime because everyone is asleep and she doesn't feel like she does have any subjects. But that's a whole nother long, convoluted thing that I don't have all in my head right now. But yeah, she's a villain. So I know here soon we're going to get to Discord, Trixie, Starlight. He's going to go through the villains first. I see what we're doing. So, yes, Nightmare Moon is a villain. I agree. It's kind of tiptoeing around that villain side, but she's still a villain. So, like,
Can I say that for sure? I don't know. Just with the canon going, I would say, yeah, probably she's a villain too, but I just don't like saying for sure either way because I don't feel like there's enough evidence that she is evil. I think she's evil, but I can't say for sure either way. Moving over to the antagonist side, I'll start with Blue Blood. Blue Blood isn't really important, and he's only really does things in one episode, but is he evil?
Pauls? Um, Blue Blood? I can't even get the words out of my mouth. Blue Blood? He is not the first pony I think of when it comes to an antagonist side to somebody. So yeah, okay. I got a feeling I'm just gonna let this play through because me personally, I can care less about Blue Blood and play.
No, nothing in canon tells us that he's evil. He's a douchebag. He's a rich, prissy, like, oh, I don't want to get dirty and I have money and treat me like a prince. He's that, but he's not evil. And that's like the fundamental difference between an antagonist, I think, and a villain. Antagonists are there to get you to not like them, but they're not necessarily evil. Villains are evil. They're literally there to do horribly bad things that change the entire story, or they're hoping to change the entire story. But let's move on to a much more important antagonist. So Trixie is much more difficult to define, I think, than probably anyone else, and I think that's what makes her so close to Starlight.
Pause. Okay. I respect his opinion on everything that he's got going on here, but I'm sorry to tell him, but Trixie is not a hard one to define. She's just strictly an antagonist who's, she's there. Literally, her first appearance was there in opposition. Not, she wasn't even there in opposition. In fact, maybe even I need to rewatch that episode. Twilight might have been the antagonist there because Trixie just came into town and she's just like, the great and powerful Trixie is here, and it's like Twilight's just sitting here trying to figure out how she's doing the tricks that she's doing. So Twilight might have been more of the antagonist there. Yes, Trixie brought in that Ursa Minor, but oh wait, no. She didn't even do that. That was Snips and Snells. No, Trixie might not even be an antagonist. Now that I'm thinking about it, I mean, she just came in and did her job. She was there to perform tricks, and Twilight's the one that actually came there kind of like, oh, come on. This is a trick, people. She's not doing magic or whatever. I'd have to rewatch that episode, but I do agree that she is probably a bit of an antagonist just by her attitude in general. She's not that hard to define. She's not a villain whatsoever, though. Let's continue. Okay. And like,
Like, Trixie and Starlight are very similar. Um, I think it's because Trixie, they didn't mean to blow up into this huge character, and they were like, oh my gosh, everyone loves Trixie, so they had to use her more. Whereas Starlight, she was part of the plan. They were like, we're using her, and again, I've mentioned this all in my Twilight video, so go watch that if you haven't. Um, Trixie started off as just a boastful liar, and lying, I would say, is evil. But I don't think Trixie was evil in her intent when she was lying about slaying the Ursa Major and stuff like that. She was just trying to do what a stage performer would do, which is rile up a crowd and become popular. And that made her more of an antagonist to start out with. Trixie wasn't a villain until she got the Alicorn amulet. And when she got the Alicorn amulet, you would say, oh, this is evil. Forced subjugation on a group again. I'm going to make them do what I want with my vast amount of power that I now have. They are going to
pause. Okay. I will be fair here. I did forget about that Alicorn amulet. But I'd have to rewatch the episode to be fully informed on that one because let's be real, some episodes it's been quite a while since I've watched. Um yeah, so I'm just gonna have to go along, but that's an outside influence that's with her now, so that's not actually her. So yeah, either way, let's continue. And
obey me. I will make them my slaves, stuff like that. This is evil. But there is conflict, conversation, argumentation on whether or not the Alicorn amulet was controlling Trixie. And that is possible. Maybe not even controlling, but heavily influencing. And then that's when you get into this whole thing where it's like, well, Trixie maybe isn't villainous at heart, and the Alicorn amulet did that. So it's all very hard to determine based on just canon. But when you see who Trixie is in later seasons and who they made her into be, I think it's pretty safe to say that Trixie isn't evil. I don't think she was ever evil. I don't think she ever had evil intentions. She's just arrogant, boastful. She's essentially Rainbow Dash, but a performer in magic. I mean, because like Rainbow Dash performs for the the Wonderbolts, like she's part of that. So they're essentially the same character, but they decided to make Rainbow Dash a protagonist, and they decided to make Trixie an antagonist. And I think Trixie gets a bad rap, especially with being included in any villainous anything, because I don't think she's evil.
pause. Okay, so before we get to Discord, because they're saying that Discord's antagonist, he is now. He was a villain back then, but he's an antagonist now. But I'm hoping me and them agree with that because I don't know. But I'm glad that they ended with Trixie being an antagonist and actually acknowledging that maybe with absolute power absolutely corrupts. That's a saying that's out there. I don't fully know where it comes from, but it comes from somewhere. And with that power, though, that caused a little bit of corruption within her, and I'm glad that he acknowledged that that's probably what happened. So, other than that, yeah, Trixie, antagonist, but not the most antagonistic. I mean, I don't know how else to say that. So, Discord, on the other hand, let's see where they go with this because I've already mentioned a little bit about Discord and how I feel about his villain antagonistic role. So I got a feeling that me and them aren't going to agree with this. So let's go ahead with it because they don't have them listed in the villain category. Let's continue. Play.
Then you have Discord. And Discord, I think, would definitely be like a subjective villain, but it would depend on what your idea of chaos is. Some people think chaos is not inherently evil, and it's not something that is bad in and of itself. But some people think chaos is evil. It's calamity. It's not order, right? So Discord has an immense amount of power, but he never used it in canon to really kill anyone or really hurt anyone. He could have. There are things he could do that would absolutely devastate literally everything in the sense of pain and stuff.
Pause. He might be convincing me about, you know, Discord only being an antagonist because Discord only enjoys chaos. He doesn't necessarily want to cause physical harm, mental harm, or whatever else other kind of harm. He doesn't want to kill anybody. He doesn't want to do none of that. I'm starting to agree with him on this aspect because Discord just he embraces the chaos, such as I know not everybody goes to church and stuff, but I do. So every Sunday, I'm sitting there behind the computer screen doing the live stream and trying to keep up with that. And that's pretty chaotic, honestly, because trying to keep up with that music and those words, oh my gosh, I hate it. Well, I don't hate it. I shouldn't say it that way. But then there's also, the camera that's right there as well next to me. I don't control that, but, well, I can. But somebody else is sitting there, and then the soundboard's right over here too. I can control that, but we got somebody for that day as well. I mainly stick with the live stream and the video streaming aspect of it because we also got to the left of me where they throw the words on the projectors during the service itself. So something that the person who is technically over the sound and audio and video, he's an older gentleman, probably getting close to 75 to 80 now. Love the guy to death. He's a great guy. But he doesn't embrace the chaos. He needs to embrace it. I'm like, you know what? I won't, because I tell him all the time, I'm like, kick everybody out from back here. I'll do it all myself. I might be making mistakes, but let's embrace this chaos. Let's set this sound, get it fixed, ready to go first thing, set it and forget it. I don't have to do that. Then I got the audio. I can have the camera set up in 3 to 4 different angles and set my sound. I could set the cameras up as I'm going along with the video, and then I could just have the projector projecting the things for the crowd. I feel like I can work well within that chaos of just doing everything because the sound's already done. I don't have to touch it no more. All I have to do is touch 3 different computers and be done with it. So I agree kind of that Discord is just an antagonist. He's not actually evil. He didn't want to kill the main 6. He just wanted to create a little chaos for them. He enjoys chaos. He has his own realm of chaos. So my gosh, I like that. So Discord was never a villain. Holy crap. So maybe Celestia and Luna were the villain to encase him in that stone. Oh my gosh. Okay. He did do something villainistic though. So I can say that much. It was villainistic for him to try to create chaos everywhere. Just because he enjoys it doesn't mean everybody else does. So, yeah. Okay. I need to shut up. We need to continue. Let's go ahead and play. Darn it. You know what? I messed that up, but you know what? That's what MLP teaches you. Second chances, y'all. And play.
Like that. But usually his whole shtick is just doing dumb crap. He makes it rain chocolate milk. He makes sheep dance. He essentially is just he's chaos, right? In the episode where Fluttershy, where he's trying to like be more orderly, he almost disappears. He can't go against his nature, and I think that makes him not evil either. So even to say Discord is a villain, like with evil intentions or to do bad, how can he go against the very nature of what he is? He is chaos, therefore he spreads chaos and he wants more chaos. And that's just who he is. And I can't, with good conscience, say that makes him evil and that therefore wouldn't make him a villain. He's just the literal definition of an antagonist, which is he opposes the views of the protagonists. That's it, and that's not his fault. It's just who he is.
Balls. Okay, before we jump into Starlight, who is the main focus of this video, going back to Discord, he brings up such a freaking valid point. I will agree that Discord isn't a villain. Villainous things were done by, by accident by him, but it, he brought up the point that Discord, if he is orderly and doesn't have chaos around him, like in that episode with Fluttershy when he tried to be orderly, he will literally fade away and die. Without chaos, Discord doesn't exist. So he ultimately has to have the chaos around him. Thankfully, he has his own little realm thing that goes on, and he can abide within that chaos himself. So, yeah, that is crazy to think about that this whole time he has to have chaos in order to survive. It's kind of like how, the changelings have to have love to survive, but they go about it the wrong way. There's a lot of different video essays that could be made on so many different subjects. But yeah, Discord's not a villain. Never was. And
So as I move on to Starlight, and I started doing a little bit of research because, like, I obviously know what happens with Starlight and whatnot, but I wanted to get specific examples. You really see how the writers really went, like, absolutely ridiculous to show that Starlight was, like, supposedly evil. And, like, it makes sense in a way because cults are bad. Like, obviously, they were trying to do a cult, right? And cults brainwash people, and then they, like, force them to stay, and anybody who wants to leave isn't allowed to leave. And, like, that's what they were trying to do here, but they tried to mix cutie marks with it, and I think that's where the issues really come up, that it's just like, this is kind of nonsensical, and they're making Starlight look like an absolute psychopath, which cult leaders are, and Starlight is supposed to be one, but it just kind of falls apart because of the ludicrousness of, like, the episode. Like, for example, in this scene with Sugar Belle, we see, like, she's like the baker or whatever, right? And she, like, makes, like, crappy muffins. But the thing is that, what are you trying to say? That anyone without a cutie mark for baking can't bake a muffin that tastes good? Like, are all ponies who don't have cutie marks unable to cook for themselves good meals? Because that's absolutely ludicrous. A cutie mark is your special talent. For example,
pause. Okay, so I know he's in the middle of a sentence, but the way I interpret that is if they don't have their cutie mark, they essentially lose that magic touch. That's something special that's within them that makes them who they are. And it's who she is to create baked goods. That's part of her identity. She is that. It's like if Pinkie Pie were to lose her cutie mark, she would lose her cheerfulness. She would lose her wanting to just make everyone smile. She would lose that magical spark that's within her to do those things, just like Rainbow Dash probably would be a little bit more like, I don't really care about flying and, being as awesome as I am. I could care less. And Rarity probably wouldn't care about fashion or they. I feel like a cutie mark, if you don't have it, you just lose that little bit of spark of magic that's within you that makes you who you are. And she's a baker. Sugar Belle is a baker. And normally her stuff, baked goods, would taste great, but she just isn't who she normally is without that cutie mark. So that's what sticks out to me. I know he's about to say something else, though, so I'm going to let him continue here. And
like Applejack with her apples and being very skilled with them and picking them, and her life revolving around it, right? It's essentially what your life revolves around. Twilight's life revolves around magic. Rarity's life revolves around gems in her creating things. Fluttershy's hers revolves around animals. Pinkie Pie revolves around parties. It's what your life revolves around, and you're very good at. But you could still be good at other things. Like, I am not incredible at making food, but I could still make food that I like and other people like, and they're like, that's good. I could still, like, play video games at a decent level. I can enjoy movies. People are diverse, and, like, ponies are diverse too. Doing this whole, well, if they don't have a cutie mark, they can't even bake a decent good. That's stupid. And it's what I always say. I'll always say it. They always try to mix, like, humanity with the magical world of Equestria where horses can fly. And it's like, that's really bad because the applying human real world logic to a magical world where magic exists is just really dumb. And then, like, we get this.
pause. Before we jump into that scene, I am going to be fair to what he's saying here. I do get what he's saying. The cutie mark isn't what makes people be who they are. So it's not necessarily that, but we got to keep in mind that Starlight also gave them all a cutie mark as well, an equal sign. Everybody is equal. Everyone has the same amount of everything all the way around. They don't have individualism is the key thing here. And without that individualism, someone like Sugar Belle, she ain't going to be able to bake as well as she used to because everybody's got the same amount of, qualities about themselves. Nobody is any better of a baker than the next person. Nobody is any better of a musician than the next person. So that's essentially what Starlight did with giving them those equal signs as cutie marks. Now, do I understand the point that he's making? Yes. He's saying that, hey, such as Applejack, her and her family can bake goods just as good as Pinkie Pie in all reality. Granted, it's all apple related, but they could still bake nonetheless. But what it is with that is that's part of their magic, that cutie mark, that individualism, that everything. A cutie mark is very important in this universe. And I know I'm overanalyzing some stuff here, but at the same time, it is what it is. So, yeah, I understand what he's saying, and I can agree to it to some point, such as there's got to be somebody in the village who can actually bake something, but can they? Because they took all the baking skills out of, Sugar Belle and distributed it to everybody equally, which then means it's just a little bit of baking skill left for everybody. So hopefully what I said makes sense. I'm not 100% sure if it did because sometimes I'll say stuff and it don't make no sense. Either way though, let's continue and find out about this little scene right here. And blah.
Scene, right? And they ask, one of them asks, how can you be friends with different cutie marks? Don't you end up hating each other? They act like, at what age were these ponies, apparently, did they come here? They knew that before. Oh yeah, you could be friends with some, like, how long did Starlight run this small little town, and when did she start brainwashing these ponies? That's already ridiculous too. We get a part where Rainbow Dash tells them, go get your cutie marks back, and they say, well, daydreaming is one thing, but you mean actually having it put back on? That seems extreme. And then Sugar Belle says, I'm not sure Starlight would like that. She wants us all to be happy in our sameness. And it's like, okay, so they're brainwashed, right? But you don't brainwash people this effectively when they themselves are not willing to let go of their previous beliefs, right? Like, I could understand if Starlight was brainwashing foals, sure, but I'm pretty sure this didn't happen like when she was a foal and she was brainwashing other foals. So it had to happen at some point. Like, they grew up. Like, it's just nonsense.
Pause. Okay. So I feel like he's thinking that adults can't join cults because they're grown up and they'd have to lose their whole self worth and let's see, right words here. Okay, I don't know the right words, but essentially I feel like he's saying that adults wouldn't be able to. Granted, yes, it would be more difficult to get an adult to join a cult slash communism. I don't know exactly whether they were going for a cult aspect or a communistic aspect, so we're just going to go along with the lines of cultish aspect right here. You can get adults to easily join a cult. It happens more often than you think nowadays. Just because, yes, it would be easier if you were to get some foals and, indoctrinate them into the cult as they were growing up. But when you've got tons of adults out there who are out there just trying to find a place where they fit. And then they find somewhere where they think, huh, you know what? They've got some good ideas. On the surface, it sounds fine. But then it's like, oh, don't get too deep into this. I don't know. Just like where Sugar Bell's saying, I don't know if Starlight would be okay with us, you know, whatever he said along the lines of, I don't know if Starlight would think that we would be happy without our sameness. It doesn't take much for people to join cults. I know the channel has been going through a bit of a change, but there was a time where I would have some stuff on this channel that involved a cult that I was talking about that adults are in. It's ran by a guy named Kent Hovind. I used to have videos about him on this animation channel because this channel used to have a bigger reach than what it does now. And I figured I'm not going to start up another channel to talk about this guy because I met the guy. He's a pretty charismatic guy. Adults can get sucked into cults. Granted, yeah, I don't. I'm like, dang, I hate saying it this way. I'm a lot like Starlight. I'm not just going to take what somebody says at face value. I got a little bit of common sense. But I'm not talking about the cult Starlight, the cult leader Starlight. I'm talking about common sense Starlight. Obviously, I wasn't going to join the cult, but I met the guy. I understand how he's charismatic and can get people there. He runs a place called Dinosaur Adventureland. It's a young Earth creationist, I'm gonna say commune. I mean, technically, it's a park slash church thing. I don't even know what to call it. It's all kinds of weird. But adults join cults. You don't see the people that did the whole thing that Stargate or whatever it was, the people that thought that there were some people on a ship behind Hale-Bopp's comet that came years and years ago, you don't think that they were all adults? They all joined that cult. Um, I don't think it's Stargate, cult, but it was Star something. Just search Star and cults, and you'll find it. Trust me, they're all adults. The majority of people that went with Jim Jones down to Guyana, they were mainly adults who brought their children. So I'm not being rude to this guy who's doing this video, but it's very feasible for adults to join up with a cult and actually be 100% brainwashed. Sorry, it just is what it is. And I'm sorry, it might seem like I'm getting a little animated about it, but it's just, oh my gosh. I'm one of the ones who's, other than animation and stuff like that, and comic books and movies, I enjoy actually listening to documentaries about stuff as I'm driving down the road. Like, I've studied endless cults. I've studied endless conspiracy theories. Granted, cults and conspiracy oh my gosh. Y'all know what? Let me just end this talking point on adults can easily join cults. Let's continue. And
sensical, right? It doesn't
does.
make sense. There's another part where they themselves say we're not kept from them. The cutie marks, that is. They're in the vault up in the caves. We can visit them anytime we like to remind us of the heartache of a life with special talents. But special talents are just what your life revolves around. They'd still be able to make decent meals. They'd still be able to do like basic fun things. They'd still like talk. Like it's so absurd of a concept that I can't even take it seriously as, oh, Starlight.
Pause. Okay, I'm sorry, but it's not an absurd idea. Whenever they say that they can go back anytime and look at the heartbreak of what a cutie mark is. And they don't look at their cutie mark. They're so brainwashed that they look at their cutie marks as a symbol of all that was wrong in their lives. That's how brainwashed they were. And the cutie mark that they got now is an equal sign representing that they are all the same, equal traits throughout everyone. Hence the reason why they're such dull colors. They're all equal. They've got a hint of who they were, but they're all equal with their color palettes of being so dull and drab, and they don't have a more special talent than the next person next to them. Musically, they don't nobody's better musically than the next person. Nobody's a better baker than the next person. Nobody's a better carpenter. Nobody's a better bricklayer. Nobody's a better, I don't know, fashionista. Nobody's better than nobody. They're all 100% equal. So for this guy to think that, oh, they would still be able to do these basic skills. Well, okay, yeah, but they can do those basic skills, but all on an equal playing field. They don't have any more talent than the next person. So all their baking skills are distributed evenly amongst everyone. I understand the concept of this cult, but I feel like he's jaded with Starlight being his favorite character. Let's continue. And
It is evil because it's like, to what degree of control does Starlight have somehow on these ponies? Like, it makes sense in a world where, but then they have like the whole, she takes their cutie marks and they get all depowered like they lost their it's just a ridiculous like premise. You really like have to buy into that, like Starlight is evil for it to make any semblance of sense. And she's not. So I wasn't sure how I was going to do Starlight as my number one, but I decided that it was going to be broken up into multiple videos, kind of like Twilight was, because I feel like I have almost as much, if not more, to talk about Starlight. And yeah, this was going to be, I planned for this to be one video. This whole discussion that I just did, and the next episode, part two of the cutie map. No, not part two of the cutie map. I don't need to talk about part two of the cutie map. We see what happens. The climax of this season, episode 25 and 26. I need a lot of time to talk about episode 26 because there's a lot to go into about everything because there are so many
Pause. Okay, so this one video here that we went through was part one of his stuff. So I'm gonna go ahead and say, if y'all want me to do whenever he releases it, if he has already released it, if I can get the word out of my mouth, I don't know if he's already released it or not, but if y'all want me to do his part two video and go through that one like I'm doing with this, then please, of course, if you made it this far, leave your comments down below. But I got a feeling I'm not one to start drama, of course, and I'm not starting drama with this guy. He's free to have his opinions however he deems necessary, but I'm just not personally convinced that Starlight wasn't a villain. She was literally leading a cult. It's not hard to fathom how adults can get sucked into a cult. It's not hard to fathom that that equal sign cutie mark distributed everybody's, skills evenly. They were all on an equal playing field, this and that. It's not hard to understand all this. She was leading a cult and brainwashed these ponies to the point where they felt like their cutie mark was a representation of how everything was terrible back in the day with that cutie mark. So I can't see her not being a villain. I love Starlight to death, but I'm sorry to tell anybody, she was a villain when you slow down to think about it. I feel like that, like I know I already said, I feel like, his love of Starlight is clouding his analysis of her as a villain because, yeah, it's not hard to see. And I'm not starting drama by nitpicking what he's saying. It's just me. I didn't know what I was getting into when I started the video, so it's turned into whatever it is. So by all means, hopefully, if they're watching this, they know that I'm not trying to start nothing. I'm just kind of just going through the video, sharing my thoughts as it's happening. I'm gonna go over there and hit the like, of course, and give it, its proper watch time and all that stuff, like I do with every video that I watch in the back of the truck with y'all. So that's what I am going to do after this. Go over there, watch the video in full, give it its full watch time that it deserves, because I do have to download these things onto this tablet in order to do these videos. So I encourage everyone to go over there as well to actually check his stuff out. And if you agree with what he says, please go over there and leave a comment in agreement. Don't go over there doing anything saying like, oh, you don't do that. Obviously, he has his opinions and he's entitled to them. So I want to continue this though. There is only like 2.5 minutes left of this video. I might let it play out. I might not. I'm not 100% sure which way to go with that, but we'll find out as he continues because he's talking about what he's going to tackle in part two. So let's continue and play.
Conceptions about Starlight, how strong Starlight is, what happened, all of that stuff. And that's going to take me a good like 20 to 30 minutes to talk about by itself. And I don't want this video to be like 40 minutes plus long. So we'll make that the next video in this series about Starlight. And I haven't even like gone into the reasons as to why I love Starlight. So like I said, this is going to be quite a few episodes, videos. This one, I think, kind of established the foundation as to why Starlight is more of a antagonist, that she has different ideas, conflicting ideas with the main six, and that it's not necessarily evil if you actually think about who she is as a character and what she's trying to do. Like, we get into that, like, the entire reason they get mad at Starlight in episode 2 of the Cutie Map is because they're like, oh, well, you lied to us. Well, Yeah, she shouldn't lie. I said that about Trixie as well. Don't lie. Starlight, if she had made it clear, well, it's because I need to take the cutie marks from you, so I have to use my own magic. And she didn't flaunt her magic in front of anyone, so it's obvious that she herself was adhering to her own. We don't flaunt our special talent.
Pause. Oh gosh. I don't know fully what to say about all of this because I know he's going to have a second part, and I want to give the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, maybe then in the second part he'll convince me that Starlight wasn't a villain. For me, because you can go from villain to antagonist easily, but you can't really. I thought the same thing about Discord, but Discord's always been an antagonist this whole time in all reality. So, in all reality, he did convince me of that. That Discord's been an antagonist and all that good stuff this whole time. And we do got a minute and 15 seconds left, but I did want to pause it in between and not actually make it where it's like, oh, okay, we just watched the video without talking. Let's be real. I know I've talked a lot. Two-thirds of this video has been me talking and pausing from their video. So I'm adding like 3 times as much to this. So nonetheless, though, I still can't. Ah, all this whole Starlight didn't flaunt it and this and that. Well, a cult leader isn't going to. They're going to try to put that image out there about themselves. That's like, oh, well, I'm not really. You know, I do as y'all do. I'm just like you. I'm this and that. That's what a lot of cult leaders will do. But then behind the scenes, they're going to be 100% somebody different, which is what she was. So, yeah, if she well, I will be fair. She did have to keep her cutie mark in order to be able to take everyone else's. Either way, I'm going to let this guy continue, and more than likely, I'm going to let it play out because it's only about a minute. So let's hit that play button now.
In front of each other. Um, but obviously, the writers couldn't do that because they needed Starlight to be a pseudo villain, and they needed her to lose and to be conquered like any of the other villains. But again, I feel like I could go into it more. If you have any questions about why Starlight is an antagonist and not a villain, I'd be glad to answer those questions in the comments. But yeah, next one I'm going to go into in depth of episode 25 and 26. I forgot what it's called. But the episode where Starlight starts to really cause havoc, and why even then she is not evil in those episodes. She's just incorrect. Hopefully I'll see you there.
So the last thing he said was where she wasn't evil, just incorrect. You can be incorrect and your actions still be evil. So I'm still not convinced in the slightest that she wasn't ever a villain. I wanted to be. I truly wanted to be. I wanted to be like, you know what? She was an antagonist this whole time, and she didn't do nothing wrong at all whatsoever. I desperately want to do that, but when you're leading a cult who takes individuality, let's recollect myself here and rewind and restart. Okay, so when you're leading a cult and you're taking everyone's individuality, I know I didn't say it correctly, but who cares? And you're taking everyone's individuality to the point where they're brainwashed and they can't really function without that fear of, oh, I don't want to go back to my old life because, oh, the cutie mark was not a good thing in my life and this and that. She led a cult. That's all that's to it. I'm sorry. It is what it is. And then she did wreak havoc in the last 2 episodes of that season. So she did have a villain arc. But that's where that redemption came in. And Now, she's not a villain. She's a reformed villain who is now more of an antagonistic person than anything. And she might not even be antagonistic. So, I don't know. My wife did just call, though. Obviously, all that is on silent. And I've got to call her back. So, as I always tell everybody, she comes before everyone else because she's my wife. So, yes, if y'all want me to watch the second part to their video, I'm sure that if they don't have it uploaded yet, they will have it uploaded very soon. And then we could all watch that together again and have a whole nother hour plus video here. And other than that, though, I don't know what else to say because, yeah, I don't know. Because, yeah, I've said a lot. I'm going to shut up, pass it off to y'all. Y'all know the drill by now. And if you don't, that's what the end is for. It's for me to go ahead and pass it off to y'all. So y'all know the drill by now. Hit that like, tickle to subscribe. Don't be texting and driving. Watch what you love and love what you watch. And take it away, Mr. Rogers.
I like you just the way you are.